Crossing the United States to his native South Africa, Nolan continues to push barriers and inspire people to inspire themselves. And you could be next. Join Nolan's 7-day online groundbreaking program called Obstacles Make Me Stronger, aimed at teaching you how to overcome any obstacles you may face, break barriers, be innovative, and take control of your life. For more information, check out Obstacles Make Me Stronger, now on Udemy.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to Inspirational Journeys Through Life with Straight Talk with Nolan. My name is Nolan Pillay, and I am your host for today. And it's our pleasure and honor to welcome Liora Karpelowsky to our show. Now, Liora has a teaching degree and has over 16 years experience teaching children in junior and pre-primary school. She's also a mother of 2 teens and has been running her late husband's leak detection business for the last 3.5 years. Once again, Liora, welcome to Inspirational Journeys Through Life with Straight Talk with Nolan.
Thank you for having me, Nolan.
Can you share a bit more about yourself? Maybe just two paragraphs, 2 lines or so?
Sure. So, typical Joburg girl, grew up with a big family. I have 3 siblings, parents, happy upbringing. As I said, I have a teaching degree. I taught, had my children, and really just lived a very happy, comfortable, lovely life.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Well, good to have you here. Now, to the audience listening, Liora's story really touched me when we attended an event just over a month ago, and she shared a bit of her story with all of us, and she brought me and a few other people to tears. And I realized that, it was only fitting to get her onto the show and have you experience the story as well. So just to give you some context about what we're going to be talking about, Shaun is Liora's late husband, and he was stung by 3 bees. And there's a huge story behind how this transpired, but I'm going to let Liora tell us exactly what happened.
Sure. So my husband was a plumber, and he specialized in locating water leaks. And he was just getting on with his day, and he was at a job, and he lifted up a grate, and these bees flew out, and he was stung twice on the face and once on his neck. And he knew he was allergic. He had his EpiPen. The client whose house he was at was with him, and he said to her, call the paramedics. And he went to his car to get his EpiPen, which he gave himself. He, at the same time, also called the paramedics. In the area that we live, we have a community paramedic company who were there within minutes. They were there straight away. Just after Shaun had phoned the paramedics, my understanding is that he collapsed. And unfortunately, they were never able to, when I say revive him, it took a long time to stabilize him. But the severity of his reaction was so much that he landed up in a persistent vegetative state. Essentially, his brain was starved of oxygen due to the anaphylaxis, and he never really regained consciousness. And his heart stopped twice on the day that he was stung. But he lived for another 3 years in this, what they call a persistent vegetative state, which really is your body is alive, you are breathing on your own, but you are not conscious. You are not, the brain is so severely damaged that you are not there, but your body is alive.
Wow. I read a bit about Shaun's story last night. I saw there were some newspaper articles. I think there was a Jewish newspaper that spoke a little about, how he called the CSO. And I think the CSO is the company you're talking about as well. So Shaun was allergic to bee stings, right? From a very small age as well.
So even, yeah, as a child, he was allergic. My understanding of specifically bee stings is that the more times you are stung, the more allergic you get. But I don't think you ever quite know. We certainly didn't know the severity, although, I remember maybe about 10 years ago, Shaun phoning me and saying, "Oh, I've just been stung at a job." And I said to him, "Well, you better go and get an antihistamine or something." And then a few years later, he was on a hike in Cape Town with friends, and he was stung on the lip. He had taken a drink out of a bottle, and that was one sting, but on the lip. Unbelievably, one of the other guys on the hike had just by chance thrown an EpiPen in his bag at the last minute. And they gave Shaun the EpiPen. He had passed out, and they managed to get him to a hospital, and he was fine. They put him on a drip, and he was okay. And then this time was about 3 years later. And again, this was 3 bees now, and also he was stung on the face. And so it's not like on a toe, and it takes time for the venom to work its way up. Again, I'm not a medical doctor, so I could be wrong. This is just my understanding. But essentially he was stung here. So everything swelled. His breathing was compromised, although the paramedics were there so quickly and they did get an airway in. My understanding is that because all the blood vessels were so swollen because of the allergic reaction, so where there would normally be, like, say, that much room for blood to flow, there was now that much. And that went on for days. He was swollen. So there was enough blood getting to the brain for the brainstem to survive, but not for anything else. Nowhere else in the brain. That was all starved of oxygen. And so that's kind of,
that's a lot.
My understanding of, but yes, we knew he was allergic. He carried his EpiPen with him everywhere. We had an EpiPen in the house, in the cars, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't there, but there's nothing else we could have done. There's nothing else he could have done. Everything happened the way that it happened. There's no what it. The way I see it is that this happened as it was supposed to happen. This was the journey that our souls chose. There was no what if. What if the paramedics got there quicker? What if he had an EpiPen? What if he did everything right? We did everything right. This unfolded in the way that it did.
Yeah. I like the way you look at it, Liora. Such a positive way as well. Losing your husband is not a small thing. It's a major figure in your life, but the way you're actually looking at it is so totally different, and a lot of people can learn from that as well. And it takes a lot, right? I'm sure it's taken a lot on you personally, but look at you now. You're actually speaking. You're advocating, even for Shaun as well. How do you advocate to others about Shaun? When they want to hear your story.
Yeah, I mean, I've really just started trying to share my story and to share my perspective and the way that I have chosen to live despite this terribly tragic thing happening to us. And I really do. The main message that I try to share with people is that on the one hand, you have this horrific tragedy that has happened and all that brings and all that we hold with that. But on the other hand, and at exactly the same time, we have so much to be grateful for. My children and I are surrounded by the most caring, wonderful community. We have had so much support that has literally held us. I never made a school lunch for 6 months after the accident. I didn't make a meal for 3 months. We had people helping us with friends of Shaun. My friends stepped in to help us run Shaun's business. I was teaching at the time. And so I really do feel that you can have this terrible thing happen, but at the same time acknowledge the things that we do have to be grateful for. And why does the one have to take anything away from the other? Both can be true at exactly the same time. And so I hope that if this terrible thing had to happen, at least maybe by sharing my story and my perspective, the way that I've chosen to move forward, maybe that will help somebody else. But it's not easy. There are days when I'm a little bit more, I'll say I wake up and I'll say, I don't know if I'm really in the mood to choose joy today. But even that is a choice. And I can choose to find joy later on in the day once I've managed to kind of get myself out of bed. It's hard, but I don't think we have to choose just one, to be devastated or to be grateful.
Yeah.
We can hold space for both of those things at the same time.
No, absolutely. And if you think about it, with COVID that everyone recently experienced, a lot of people went into like this depressive state. A lot of people don't know how to move out from it, and they kind of got stuck there. And that's not healthy at all for them personally, because we know what depression does to the body, and eventually it's gonna lead to death, right? Let's be honest, because we're not taking care of our bodies. But when it comes to losing a loved one as well, there's quite a few people that I've met recently who has the outlook that you have on life as well. You've come to terms with the fact that Shaun is no more. He's passed on. He's moved on, and he's the guardian angel now. But you still have to be grateful for your kids, the business, for whatever you're doing for your life. You need to be grateful for your life and make sure that you can still play. Now it's like about playing a dual role for your kids as well, right? So
even before, when imagine 3 years of having my husband in this state of not being conscious, navigating a medical system that I know nothing about, trying to advocate for him, dealing with medical aids. It was really, really traumatic and really, really difficult. But at the same time, there were so many people, even, people, for example, within the medical aids or the banking system, or who understood that this doesn't fit into a little box. For example, well, we need to speak to the account holder. Well, good luck with that. I'm also waiting to speak to the account holder. That's not going to happen here. But and I know that it doesn't fit within the system, but we need to figure out how to do this here. And so many people would really just step up and try and help. So even before Shaun passed away, and as you say, so much, I'm grateful for the fact that I am here and I have 2 beautiful, wonderful children. But even in the 3 years, like I used to say to my children, we have time to say goodbye. If he would have gone on the night or a few days afterwards, I always think of it as difficult and traumatic as the 3 years were, but it was also a gentler goodbye. And so, and I found great gratitude for that. And at the same time, hold how traumatic that was to have for 3 years. I'm not a widow, but I have lost my husband. I am, I'm single parenting, and yet I have such huge support, but essentially the decisions and the responsibility is all on me. And so, but again, it's holding that. And then, yes, like you say, to find a way. I was very aware that my children are watching me. My children are going to move forward. I always say you don't move on, but you do move forward. My children are going to move forward with this in the way that I lead them. And so if I am going to walk through my days being bitter and resentful, why did this happen to us? Why me? This is so unfair. I've gotten the raw end of the deal here. Then my children are going to live their lives like that. And I hope, we are young. My children are teenagers. I'm relatively young, although my children don't tell me that. But please God, we have many happy, healthy years ahead of us. How do we want to live them? And so I always say to my children, just try and start every day with an open and grateful heart. Make space for that. At the same time, you have to find space to carry the loss and all that comes with that, but you can do both. And so I have felt a great responsibility for not only finding a way for me to move forward, but to show my children what I believe is the best way to move forward with this. Again, I say you don't move on like, okay, I'm leaving this here, and you pick it up. It becomes a part of you. It becomes a part of who you are.
No, absolutely. And, I salute you for the courage that you have, as a single parent now as well. Just to give the audience a bit more context. So Shaun was stung in 2019. It was 2019, right?
Yeah.
2019.
Yes, July of 2019.
And from there, it was 3 years that he was in a coma in the state. And I think it was only in 2022 that he passed on, right?
He passed away last year, August. August of 22.
So it's not even a year, and
No.
don't even look at it as a year. Look at it from the day he got stung. That's what Liora had to do.
Well, that's the thing, is that what is it? On the one hand, I lost my husband almost 4 years ago. But on the other hand, he only passed away last year. So there's the loss of him when he was stung, and then there's the loss again of when he passed away. There's all the admin, never mind the admin of things, when he was stung, and the legalities of having to navigate the court system to get curatorship, which is basically so that I could transact and make decisions on his behalf. That took 18 months. So what did we do in that time between, as I said, when the bank phones you and they need to speak to Mr. Shaun, and I'm like, well, I'm really sorry, but that's not going to happen. But they can't speak to me legally because I don't yet have curated. It was a whole, yeah. And now Shaun has passed away. So now there's dealing with an estate. There is a lot. So again, yes, I lost my husband 4 years ago in one way, but in another way, I only lost him 8 months ago. And it's, well, yeah, and I'm still trying to come to terms with and understand the differences between that loss. For the first time, I remember the first time I actually had to check the widow box on a form. For those 3 years, I wasn't a widow. For the 3 years that Shaun was alive, I wasn't a widow. And then one day I was, and I had to tick that box, and yet he had been gone for 3 years before anyway. So it was really a very surreal, in limbo, can't move anywhere, can't move forward, can't, and we had no idea how long that was going to go on for. People can survive in that state for many, many years. So for me, it was really about, this is where we are today. Just try and deal with where I am today. Try not to worry too much about what's coming. And even today, that's how I try and just deal with things.
Yeah, true. And I'm sure you can write a whole document on the legal system and everything you had to go through. Nobody.
The legal stuff, the medical aid stuff. So
that's a good learning in a way, right? For you as well. That you had to step up and fill in the shoes of Shaun and yourself as well. So. Again,
I stopped teaching. I was given, what do I do? Shaun runs his own business. I'm a teacher. Somebody has to run the business. Initially, I took a term off of school. I have to say, my school was so supportive and understanding. And my intention was to step in and run the business so that when Shaun came back, there would be a business to run. And then slowly, we started realizing that actually Shaun's not going to come back, or he's certainly not going to come back as he was. There was still, at some point, we thought maybe he would regain some kind of consciousness. And in the end, he never did. There was never any change from the day he was stung in terms of consciousness.
So his business is still running, right?
So his business is still running. We're actually in the process of closing because I've had to start asking myself, what do I want to do? Leak detection and plumbing is not my passion and my calling, we are in the process of closing that, and I'm starting my own journey, and it'll be interesting to see where that lands up.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be really great for you because you've learned and you've grown so much in the last few years as well. It can only be beneficial to you. I just want to talk a bit more about, you did mention about, the community as well. not a lot of people have the access to close-knit communities that can really be there for them in situations like this, when one goes through uh, losing their husband. What role did your family play, your friends and the community as well?
Sure, unbelievable. So I'm in Johannesburg, and I'm part of the Jewish community here. Within hours, not even maybe 1 hour, there were hundreds of people at the hospital. Everybody came. Shaun was very involved in the community, and there were always people at the hospital. There were prayer groups set up. I used to walk into the ICU waiting room at, say, 5 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning. If I couldn't sleep, I used to go straight to the hospital. And there was somebody in there praying. There was like a rolling prayer group. Somebody was sitting at the hospital 24 hours a day. There were people praying. Food just brought, I never had to worry. We were just so held and so looked after. Phone calls and messages and messages from people who I didn't know, who some of them I don't even know today, to say, we've heard what's happened. We know Shaun, or we don't know you, but we've heard and we just want to send love. And that was something that I really I say to people, is that when you hear that something tragic has happened, even if you don't know the people, you can send a message. If you can get a cell phone number, or you can send a Facebook message, or there is such comfort in humanity holding each other, and even from people who you don't know. I feel like there's almost an energy that comes from those well wishes that we feel, even if we don't know the people. The community literally held us. And as I said, for months, I never made school lunches. I never made meals at home. Whatever I needed, if there was, the one day I realized we needed how do we wash Shaun's hair? And within minutes, somebody knew somebody who had a medical supply company, and it was dropped off at the hospital. It was there. I do believe that you do need to be willing to and allow people to help you. I think a lot of us go into ourselves when difficult times happen, and we almost don't want to burden other people. But people want to step up and they want to be there. And we need to allow that space for them to do that. So, for example, my mom had said to me the one day, like, so many meals, don't you want to tell people to stop? I'm sure we can organize. I can go to the shops or whatever. And I said to her, Ma, there is nothing that anybody can do to make this right. They can't fix Shaun. They can't undo it. There is so little anyone can do, but they can drop off a meal. And who am I to take that away from somebody? Who am I? And it does help me. So we should let people help us.
I like what you just said right there. Allow people to help you, because a lot of people, when they go through situations like this, they're very reluctant to allow someone into their space. And the person is not coming into your space. The person is just trying to be kind. And that's what humanity is really all about. And we mustn't block people from trying their level best to play some role to say, you know what, I don't want anything for this. I'm just being kind.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The kindness and the love and the care. I can't even find the words. It is one of the most humbling experiences. And from that, I now do, if I hear that somebody needs a meal, or I've sent many messages to people who I don't know, but I've heard that something has happened. I've tried to reach out when I hear that there's another a young mom in the community who has lost her husband. I try and reach out. And the truth is, most people just want to help and care. You will know the ones, the odd one, that is really there for the sensational part of it. But that was not my experience. My experience is that people just care and want to help. And the truth is, very often there's very little that people can do. So let them do the one or two things that they can.
No, indeed. And kindness does have the spiral effect or a ripple effect. Like you've seen, you feel now that Not that you have to do it, but you're doing it to other people as well.
I want to
You
do
want
it.
to
I
do it.
know, yeah.
And
I know how it made me feel. I know the comfort that it brought me. It made me feel whilst I'm the only one going through this, but I'm not alone. I have a whole community who is there behind me and who is helping me. And it even went so far as there was another lady in the ICU whose husband, I think he had had a heart attack or something, and she needed legal advice. And she didn't know anybody who could help her. And I asked a friend who knows someone who, and within an hour, they had phoned her and they had helped her with her legal stuff.
wow. See,
You know?
everything has a way of kind of panning out as well.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little about two things, right? So one, has this ever made you felt angry? And the second one is, how did you help the kids through this as well?
Yeah. So in terms of the anger, and again, I have to just say, this is me. This is how I've gone through my trauma and my loss. And not for 1 minute do I say that this is the right way or the only way. And if people feel anger, they are so entitled. There is no right or wrong. There is no, I think that's a huge issue that we have in society, is we want to put grief and difficult feelings in a nice little neat boxes. There isn't. So I am not for 1 minute saying that this is how people should navigate their traumas or their loss, but this is how I have done it. And in terms of dealing with anger, I have to say I have never felt angry. I feel like, first of all, who am I going to be angry at? I can't be angry at the bees. They were doing what they do. I can't be angry at Shaun. He didn't know. That's what was going to happen. Anger at God. I don't believe in a punishing, vengeful God. I don't believe that this happened because we did anything wrong. I never signed a contract before I came down here that said if I did certain things, then certain things wouldn't happen to me. I do feel like anger is a very I call it a top of the pile emotion. You know, like when you've got that pile of t-shirts and you just always take the one that's on the top of the pile. I feel like sometimes go a little bit deeper. Is anger what you're really feeling, or is just that the easiest label to attribute to that feeling? Maybe you are just feeling such despair, such absolute loss, such frustration. There are a whole lot of other emotions that are under that. What I have found with anger is that it is so consuming that it leaves no room for anything else. So when I started thinking carefully about what I was going to call these feelings that I was having, as opposed to just going, anger, it leaves room for gratitude and to find joy at the same time as I am completely devastated by this loss. So that's kind of, and there are moments that I may feel anger towards an institution, that things are not going my way. Like, don't you understand that? But I've tried to be very mindful that to feel that and then to choose not to stay there. So I always say, in terms of feelings, and this leads us into that second part with my children. I always say, when you feel that feeling coming, be it anger, be it that you're driving and a song comes on and it reminds you of, triggers something in you, and you can feel it bubbling up from your core, and it bubbles and it kind of like sits here. I always say, stop, drop, and roll. You remember? I don't know if you ever, as kids, we had the fire, stop, drop, and roll, and I think our instinct is to try and run, turn the music off, phone somebody, get busy doing something else, try and run from that feeling. But I always say, just try and stop what you're doing. Pull your car over onto the side of the road, drop into that feeling, just sit in it, sit still in it, let it wash over you, let it sink into you, cry, listen to that song, have those memories. It's hard, yes, it's uncomfortable, it's it's an all-consuming. I think maybe we're scared of just being consumed by that. But trust that your heart has the capacity to hold those feelings. And then the song stops, and you take your tissues and you dry your face, and you take a couple deep breaths, maybe stop and get yourself a cup of coffee somewhere, and then you carry on with your day. And there's actually a feeling of almost relief and release. And you haven't run from that feeling the whole day, because the unfortunate thing is it's always going to catch you. If it's tonight or tomorrow or in a month's time, don't run. Just stop, drop, and roll around in it. And then it passes. And so that is again the message that I have tried to lead and show my children, when they're having a moment, as teenagers do, as we all do. Let's just stop. Let's stop. Let's talk about daddy. If one of my kids brings him up, let's stop what we're doing and let's really talk about this memory, this feeling, whatever it is. And there's actually, you get used to it, and you start to trust in your heart's capacity to hold it. I believe our hearts are meant to hold so much, so many different things at the same time.
Yeah.
Even when those things seem completely opposite of each other. I always used to tell my grade R, when I taught grade R and it was time to move to big school, to grade 1, and all the feelings, and I used to say to them, your heart is like that Neapolitan tub of ice cream, the strawberry and the vanilla and the chocolate. You don't have to pick one. You don't have to say, well, I'm excited to go to grade 1, or I'm scared to go to grade 1, or I'm going to miss. You can have all of those things together in that one tub. That is, our hearts are made to hold all of it.
Indeed, and you've really answered the question I was going to ask you on emotions as well. And you put it in so nicely as well, such a positive perspective, that when you are having these emotions, these sad emotions, for example, we are only human. We need to be in that moment, go through that emotion. And if you look at it from a different point of view, when we're celebrating a new job or whatever, or new baby coming to the world, we in that emotion, we're celebrating that. So there's it's still an emotion. So be able to fit into both emotions, be it a sad emotion or a happy emotion, because like you said, the heart is built around us and we can move forward from it. So accept it as it is, and just be prepared. At times we have to surrender, right? Because we are human. Just surrender and allow things to happen the way, or unfold the way it should be as well.
But we are scared.
Yeah.
We are scared. We are scared to surrender. And a very huge, big lesson that I learned is that if you are not able to feel that difficult stuff, unfortunately, chances are you're not really feeling the wonderful stuff either.
Absolutely.
It's not you living is feeling. That's what it means to be alive, to truly feel. But if we have protected our hearts to such an extent that we are numb to feeling the difficult stuff, then we're probably quite numb to feeling the really beautiful stuff too.
Yeah.
So and for a long time I was numb. There was no other option. It was a coping mechanism. And about a year ago, I started therapy, and the therapist said to me, why are you here? And I said to him, I don't feel. I'm very practical and I get things done, but I'm pretty numb, and I understand why I've done that. But I keep thinking to myself, this was before Shaun had passed away. I said to him, I keep thinking to myself, one day when my husband passes away, am I going to stand over his grave and not feel anything then either? Because I'm just so used to not feeling. And at the same token, one day when I stand, please God, at my children's weddings, am I not going to feel anything either?
Yeah.
I don't, you have to feel all of it. And unless you can do that, you're probably not feeling the beautiful, amazing stuff in all the ways that you can, if you're not feeling that difficult stuff. It's almost like we have to train our hearts, or just remind them how to do it, because we're so protective. We don't want to feel. Feeling can be uncomfortable. I don't like to say hard or difficult, but can feel uncomfortable. There's no such thing as bad feelings.
Not true.
But it can feel uncomfortable. It can feel uncomfortable.
And it blocks us from seeing everything else in life. And more so is if we carry on harboring these feelings of sadness within us, it's just going to pile up and stack and stack and stack till you're going to reach that breaking point. And that breaking point could be in anything that you do. And people go through this on a daily basis. We see it happening with depression and mental wellness.
Or it comes out in physical ways.
Exactly.
And so that's where I say, just stop, drop, and roll. And with that is that word that you used, surrender.
Yes.
It's almost like I just sit there and I'm like, okay, come, just come, wash over me, come into me, let me feel it, be part of me. And normally it doesn't take as long as you would think. I've never sat on the side of the road crying for more than about, if it's 5 minutes, it's a lot. Yeah. We think that it's going to follow us for the whole day and I'm not going to be able to pull myself out of it. The truth is you're going to be running the whole day from not feeling.
That's it. Yeah. So that's a good technique. So if anyone is experiencing any trauma that you have, or you need some healing, take the sound advice that Liora is giving us. Yeah. Just stop, kind of like stop, drop, and roll. I always say, stop, pause, breathe a little, get into that feeling, that emotion, because it's really so healthy to get into that emotion. One may think that if you're crying, it's not a healthy emotion. It really is a healthy emotion, right? We cry when children are born. There's tears of joy, tears of sadness, but it's all healthy emotions that don't block it out. You're just causing your own blockages within yourself. Liora, I want to end on a note, because you spoke so well about seeing the day in a different light as well. Tell us a bit more about gratitude and joy, because a lot of people in this world are not grateful people, from what I see, right? And I'm sure you've seen this. If we look at just social media, for example, there's so much of ungratefulness in this world. It seems like this joy is being stolen from us. How are people going to appreciate gratitude and joy? What are some of the things you do?
Yeah, I think at our heart, at our essence, people want to. I think we get caught up in so much. Gratitude, for me, what I have learned is that gratitude is in those small little moments. So, for example, at about 5 o'clock every afternoon, I go and I sit in my garden and I just look at the flowers and, the clouds in the sky. I have 3 little dogs who I love them to bits. My children sometimes even call them the favorite children. But I think, how grateful am I that these 3 little beautiful pups are in my life and bring me such joy. Sometimes we're sitting down for a meal, myself and my children, and there's a sadness when I look at that empty seat. And then at the same time, I am so grateful we are here together. I have 2 beautiful children who I love, who love me. And I think we look to find those big moments for gratitude.
Yeah.
The new job, the new car, the new whatever, a big family gathering. But I think we need to acknowledge that the gratitude is found in those small, everyday little moments.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're driving and I'll stop the car and I'll say to my kids, just look at the sunset. Yeah. How beautiful is that? I'm so grateful that we've seen that. Or the moon, just looking at the moon, or a cup of coffee with a friend, or that first cup of coffee at the beginning of a day. That is where the joy and the miracle and the gratitude can be found. And for people who are really, really struggling, because I know it can be so difficult, I always say, just try and find that one moment in your day.
Yeah.
Just start with one. And if you can just start becoming aware, those moments are there. You just have to be open to the possibility that you can find them. You can. But it's, to me, gratitude is not found in the big stuff. I had a conversation with a friend the other day when I was saying, sometimes I just wish, just give me a week where something in the house doesn't break, or somebody's not ill, or there hasn't been an issue with it. Like, just give me a smooth run but the truth is there is no smooth run. We wait for December. I just want my holiday is going to be perfect. And there's no such thing as perfect. Life doesn't work like that. But within all the imperfection, all the difficulties, all the trying times, there are these moments of perfection where we can find a moment of joy and gratitude. They are there. You just have to just be open to the possibility that they are there for you to find them.
True. And I strongly believe in gratitude as well. In fact, I wrote a program on attitude of gratitude a couple of years ago. And it's so important that, like you said, be grateful for even the smallest things, and try and get into the habit of practicing gratitude in the mornings when you wake up and the evening before you go to bed. Just be grateful for a few things. Even if it's a repeat gratitude, it's still fine. The point is, the more gratitude you portray, the less you will be ungrateful for. So
I feel like our hearts are meant to stretch and to hold all of that. And in some ways, especially, and who hasn't been through big stuff? We've all been through big stuff. In one way, we feel like if I allow my heart to include and stretch to hold that gratitude, I'm taking away from what I've lost. So, for example, I've lost my husband. This terrible thing happened to us. If I can now say that I'm grateful for whatever I'm grateful for, does that take away from how terrible the loss is for me? And I think people almost feel guilty. Like, I don't want it to take away from that, because maybe I'll feel less connected to the person but why? Why does one have to take anything away from the other? Our hearts are meant to stretch and to hold all of that. And especially after a loss, has been my experience, is that we almost want to hold on to that feeling of devastation and loss. Because what happens if I now start finding a moment of joy in a day, laughing, enjoying a cup of coffee out with a friend? What does that mean for the loss? Does it mean that it's, I'm okay with what's happened? As people say, I'm moving on now, which is, I don't believe that is true. But why can't we be open again, be open to the possibility that you can hold both of it? Our hearts were made to stretch, to contain, to hold all of that.
indeed.
Being grateful, finding joy in a day takes nothing from what we have lost, and the love that we feel for Shaun, and how devastated we are, and the loss, and that we miss him every single day. But having a moment of joy and happiness actually takes nothing away from that. Those two live side by side and hold their own space at exactly the same time.
True. And don't rob yourself of that joy as well, because your heart is big, and it can only get bigger by just accepting more joy and more gratitude in your life as well.
Listen, we've got one shot at this life, If anybody hasn't realized it yet, this is it. It's happening as we speak. And so I always say, what a tragedy on top of a tragedy it would be if myself and my children and our family, Shaun has parents, and Shaun has his sister, and so many friends who love him so much. But wouldn't it be a tragedy on top of a tragedy if we became bitter and resentful, and our hearts shrunk, and we became more closed, and we didn't live? I always say to, in some way, knowing what we know, having been through what we've been through, do we not have even more of an obligation to live the most beautiful, grateful, joyful, happy lives that we can?
Totally agree with you. And we should as well. And like you rightfully pointed out earlier on, you can't afford to be angry about this, because who do you take your anger out? You can't go and fight with the bees. They were just doing what they are meant to be as well. And they are just another.
I believe that my personal belief is that this was our soul's journey. I believe that Shaun was the soul. He did this not to us, but he did this for us. He was the soul that said, we need to learn this. I'll be the one who'll get stung by the bees and spend 3 years in this state so that we can all learn and grow from it. And this was the journey that we chose. Again, I don't believe in a punishing, vengeful God. I don't believe that that's how it works. I believe we come here to learn lessons and to grow, and it's our choice whether we do or we don't. And I have a little bit of a joke. I once said to my rabbi that best I learn whatever the lessons are, because when I'm done, I'm not coming back. I want a one-way ticket to the penthouse suite. And I want a meeting with the complaints department, but not those call center people. I want the escalations manager. And he laughed, and then he replied, and he said to me, that's great, stand in line.
Yeah.
Because that's the truth of it. We are not the only ones. Everybody goes through stuff. Everybody is going to lose somebody that they love. Everybody is going to have difficult moments. That's what being here means, but I don't see it as a punishment. That doesn't mean it's not hard. It really is. But I do get to choose how I move forward from it and with it.
And how you see it as well, which is so important, right? Because when people need to realize, and that's a famous saying that I always hear, is life is not happening to us, but for us. So when you see it in that light, it gives you a totally different spin on you as a person. And that's what allows us to become better humans and grow as well.
Right.
So
not why is this happening to me, but what for?
Yeah. And from what I've read, a lot of people speak so highly of Shaun. He's a community hero. He's such a humble person. Whenever there's anyone needing anything, he's the first one to be there as well. So Shaun, to you, rest well, brother. Just rest well. And Liora, thank you so much for being on our show today and sharing with our audience. It's really been an honor to listen to your story. If somebody else wants to interview you on the story, how do they get in touch with you?
They could email me. I don't know if you can put a link or to my email address.
I will add it onto the description as well.
Great.
Yeah.
Lovely.
So they can email you and get to hear your story, because I think it's quite an important story to teach people about all the learnings that you came through with this and how.
That is my hope. Yeah. If this had to happen to me, if this was my journey, let at least the things that I have learned maybe help somebody else as they are going through their own difficult time, their own difficult journey.
And to know that they're not alone. Yes, you will have the lonely moments, but it's also good to lean on the community, because the community is always there. Don't shut them out is the key. No. Allow them to.
Allow people to step up. People want to be there for each other. We really, really do. People just don't know how. They don't know what to do. But allow that space. It starts by you allowing that space for people to step up and be there for you.
Absolutely. So thank you once again. And thank you everyone for listening to Inspirational Journeys Through Life with Straight Talk with Nolan. I'm sure you're going to love this content. Please, it's going to be on YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and also Anchor FM as well. Leave your comments at the bottom, and I will make sure that it gets to Liora. If you have any questions for her, please point it in there as well. And share this comment with as many people as possible. Let's help as many people as possible to relate to the stories or to resonate with the stories that we come up with. So once again, thank you for listening to our show. And I'd like to wish you a good morning, a good evening, or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Thanks, Liora. We really appreciate having you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you.